Hello everyone, welcome to this skills shop on Are You an Influencer? Just a little bit about myself first. So my name is Jo Field. I am an award-winning communications consultant and gender equality campaigner. I'm the founder and managing director of JFG Communications. We are a consultancy that specialises in stakeholder engagement and diversity for the transport, infrastructure and construction sectors. Now, before setting up the consultancy, I spent about 10 years at Transport for London, building their award-winning stakeholder engagement team and working on a number of equalities and inclusion initiatives. I want to tell you a little bit about where and why I got my passion for encouraging women into male-dominated industries. Transport is very similar to construction. There are only about 20% of women, 20% of the workforce are women. So, and it might seem a bit weird for me to say, but actually when I first joined the transport industry, I didn't initially notice the lack of gender diversity. I think this was mainly because I do communications roles and comms roles are traditionally a bit more female dominated. But the more senior I got and the more I moved up the organization, that, you know, it tended to be, oh, there's actually a lot less women in these meetings. What I also found was that after I had my two children, particularly when I came back to work following the birth of my second son, I came back to work and I was in a senior leadership role, and I was, you know, essentially very sleep deprived with a baby and a young toddler. And I just thought, wow, you know, this is really hard. I'm not operating at my best here. So I looked around me for who are my peers and my role models that I can turn to for support. And so there are lots of very good senior women at TfL and in the transport industry, but just not enough of them. And that's when I thought, oh, I need to do something. I need to reach out and campaign for change. So that's when I got involved in Women in Transport initiatives at TfL, and also on the board of Women in Transport, campaigning for those issues nationally. And that's where the idea for JFG Comms was born, because I wanted to do something that could marry up the communications and the diversity side of things. I was awarded the Every Woman in Transport Industry Champion Award in 2016. And that was for encouraging more women into the industry. So, and since then, we've worked with Heathrow and the Mayor of London on equalities initiatives and also on major projects in the construction sector. So what are you going to learn today? So this is an influencer, Are You an Influencer workshop on personal branding. The three things I would like you to take away are: what is a personal brand and why do you need one? How to create your personal brand, and how to promote your personal brand. So it is going to be an interactive workshop. So I would like you to ask questions in the chat, which actually I can't see the chat at the moment. So I've got my colleague Becky is on. So Becky, if you could, I'll stop every now and again. And if you could just maybe read out to me any questions that are in the chat, please. And we're going to have a bit of a break in the middle where I'm going to ask you to do an exercise to help you to start thinking about your personal brand. Okay, I hope that sounds good. So first of all, let's have a think about what is a personal brand, what is a personal brand, and why you might need one. So Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, once said, your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So that's quite a good way of thinking about it. If people are going to be talking about you anyway when you're not in the room, then wouldn't it be quite good to shape that story and to shape what people are going to say about you? Why might we need a personal brand? Has anyone got any ideas why we might need a personal brand? Please, you can either speak out or put stuff in the chat. Becky, can you just read to me anything that comes up in the chat, please?
Yeah, will do.
Thank you. Okay, so some of the reasons why we might need a personal brand. Is there anything in the chat yet? It looked like something was fun.
Yes, so future job prospects, promotion, to improve the communication.
Yeah, absolutely. Future job prospects is a really good one. So if you're thinking about, so either future job prospects within your project, within your organization, or externally, how are future employers going to notice you? How are they going to know about your skill set? You know, how are they going to know to come to you? So you need to cultivate that brand so that future employers can know you. It also helps you to build your network. It helps you to be recognized as an expert in what you do. It helps you to get paid what you're worth. You know, there's lots of reasons why you might need a personal brand. Is there anything else in the chat yet, Becky?
No, not at the moment.
Okay. So we've got a bit of an idea what a personal brand is and why we might need one. Now we're going to have a think about how you might create your personal brand. Has anybody done any work before on thinking about your personal brand, what the ingredients are? Let me know in the chat or feel free to speak out. Is there anything in the chat, Becky?
So one person is saying it's the first time they've heard about it.
Okay, well, this is good. You're in the right place if this is the first time you've heard about it. So yeah, so key ingredients to think about when creating your personal brand. So first of all, think about your talents. And by talents, I mean, what are your innate abilities? What is it that you always do, you really can't stop doing, the stuff that really is, you have a flair for? So for me, definitely I'm a campaigner at heart. I always have been since I was a little girl. I always noticed gender inequality and I wanted to do something about it. Most of the jobs I've done have always had a campaigning element to them. So I would say I am a talented campaigner. So you have a think about what are your talents? What are some of your core talents? And that is one of the ingredients that goes into your personal brand. Another thing to think about is your values. What is at the core of what you believe in? Because your values need to be a key part of your personal brand. You couldn't have a brand that was inconsistent with something that you believed in. Those 2 points actually come from, there's a really good book called Brand You by John Perkis and David Royston Lee. And if you actually do want to do a bit of work on developing your personal brand, this book takes you through exercises and things that you can think about to help you develop what your personal brand is. So I would recommend that. Other things to think about are what is it that you want to be known for? So we've said people are going to be, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So what do you want people to say about you? What key skill or what core of your job that you do is it that you actually want to be known for? Or perhaps you want to be known for something completely different that's nothing to do with your job. But when you think about your brand, those are some of the things you need to think about. And the other thing is, what is it that makes you different? So if you're talking about thinking about your next career move, whether that's within your own organization or externally, there's lots of people that do similar jobs to you, but how are future employers, either within your own company or externally, how are future employers going to find you? How are they going to know that it's your unique skill set that they need? So you have to come up essentially with your unique selling point, if you like. So these are things to think about. A few other things about your brand. So your name is a part of your brand. That's very important. Your appearance also is part of your brand. It's interesting. There's a lot of schools of debate on this, and something that happened to me many years ago, say about 10, 12 years ago. Transport's quite traditional and probably a bit more formal than construction, because construction has a site element to it. I think there's maybe not so much of suits wearing goes on, but definitely in the transport industry there has been. And when I'd say about 10, 12 years ago, my line manager once said to me, "Oh, Joe, I think you should wear a suit jacket more often." And actually a mentor said that to me once as well, you know, and I think that advice was of its time. But, you know, there are kind of protocols around what you should wear. And, you know, people say things like dress for the job you want. I'm not saying you need to wear suits. What I am saying is you need to think about your appearance and what brand that promotes and what brand you want to promote. So your appearance is a key ingredient. Also, your name is part of your brand, but your job title is not part of your brand, interestingly. So when you put your headline on LinkedIn, don't use your job title, use that headline to describe what you do. Right, I think, Becky, is there some stuff in the chat now? Questions or comments?
Someone's saying that they're not really sure how to go about it, as it's quite overwhelming when you start to think about it.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. There's a lot to think about, and definitely, so we're going to do a short exercise in a minute to help you start to think about these things, but definitely it's something that you need to spend a bit of time on in your own time. And there are plenty of books. I mean, that book I just mentioned is a good one, but there's plenty of books that can help you to guide you through this, but it's definitely something worth doing. Okay, so we are going to take 5 minutes now. I would just like you to all, because it's a workshop, this is an exercise for you to do to help you to start thinking about this. So if you just start to think about your talents, your values, what do you want to be known for and what makes you different, just spend 5 minutes jotting that down, and then you're part of the way there. Okay, and if you've got any questions while you're doing it, please feel free to put in the chat and Becky will read them out, or you can speak out as well. You'll be glad to know that I can see the chat now. So I've put the title of that book in. How are you getting on with that? Would you like another couple of minutes, or have you all had a bit of a think about these 4 points? Now, definitely, this is, it's something to do some more work on in your own time. I'm just reading some of the messages in the chat. Struggling with what makes me different. That is a hard one. Do you know a good way to find the answer to that would actually be to ask people, to ask colleagues, to ask friends. If you have the chance to do 360 feedback at work, that can be really helpful, because actually some of your colleagues might have a good idea about what your unique selling point is. Thanks for your comment, Manon. What makes you different is quite different to what you want to be known for. Yeah, so this sounds, so if you have that issue, then actually it's almost as if you need to rebrand. Because if you think about a company, companies go through rebrands. So you might need to rebrand your personal brand, if that makes sense. Someone's asked a question also about self-promotion, and if you're not that good at it. So we're going to come on to some tips about that in a minute. Okay. So now we're going to think about how do we promote our personal brand. So if you think about brand you as something that needs to be marketed, you have to look after the brand in the same way that you would for a company. You've got to use your brand consistently, and it's a big job actually. And of course, we don't all have time to dedicate loads and loads of hours to it, but you should dedicate some time to it. So key things to think about are telling your story. So Simon Sinek, he's an author and a motivational speaker. Has anyone heard of Simon Sinek? He talks about finding your why. And that's your kind of your why. Why is it you do what you do? What is it? What is behind your passion? I'm glad that someone has heard of Simon. Yes. So at the start, when I talked about what, after having my 2 kids, that's what inspired me to work to get more women into male-dominated industries. So think about what your why is, tell your story, be authentic, be true to yourself. And then from that sort of bigger narrative, you need to distill that down into an elevator pitch. Has everybody heard of an elevator pitch? So an elevator pitch is essentially what you would say in 30 seconds if you had 30 seconds in the lift with perhaps your chief executive, or perhaps someone externally who you really admire and you would like to work with. What would you say in that 30 seconds to describe who you are, what you do, your unique selling point, so that they go away with a, wow, this person's amazing, I need to promote them. That kind of feeling. So think about your elevator pitch. Also think about how you can be more visible. Think about what your goals are as well, because if your goals are internal promotion, then you want to think about how you can be more visible within your organization. So, what can you say at team meetings to showcase the great work you're doing? Could you write an article for the internet? Those kinds of things. If your goals more about developing your career externally, then it's how can you be visible externally? What can you say on LinkedIn? Can you write articles for the press? Can you be quoted in the media? Now, obviously, we all have day jobs. We all work for companies that have strict media protocols. And I'm not saying you should go off and speak to the press, because you probably shouldn't. And I'm sure your comms team would tell you off for that. But have a think about what you can do within the parameters of your job. Building your network is very important. I know it's not so easy right now in the virtual world, but there are lots of good online conferences like this one that have networking. Women in transport and women in construction and other industry bodies I know have done some really good online networking events. So, and just have like virtual calls and things with colleagues and people who are already in your network. Definitely building your network is the key to becoming more visible. And thinking about how you can work with your network, how you can help each other out. Some people use the term how you can use your network. Not everybody likes that, but it is about supporting people in your network, helping each other out, making introductions for each other, that kind of thing. Importantly, also, you want to be recognized as an expert in what you do. So think about what it is you want to be known for, and then make yourself an expert on that topic. Keep up to date with all industry trends and news. Become the go-to person for knowledge on whatever your area of expertise is. Championing your achievements, that's very important. Someone asked for some help on, how you do that. And, so there's a lot of research that says women are not so good at this, or as women, we don't always like to blow our own trumpets, as it were. So tell me, so have a think about this. Does this sound familiar? Oh yeah, so busy, my day job's so busy, my project's really busy. We kind of complete one task, we move on to the next thing. I'm working all hours, it's full on. So, I just keep my head down. I know that I'm doing a good job. I don't have time to write something for LinkedIn. I don't have time to go to the team meeting and shout about what I'm doing. But I know that as long as I keep my head down and carry on doing a good job, eventually someone will notice. Does this sound familiar to anyone? Just going to see what pops up in the chat. Yes. Lots of people are saying this sounds familiar. Now, there's a lot of research that says that as women are much more likely to keep their head down, get on with the job, and believe that that will be enough. Now, unfortunately, it's the world we live in. That is not enough. You do have to champion your achievements. So it is self-promotion, but think about it in a different way. Actually, it would be quite helpful if you could share your achievements, let people know about the good work that you and your team are doing, because actually it might help you. If you're working in a very large organization, it's about joining people up, joining dots. So if you're able to share some of your team's successes, that actually might help some of your colleagues. So that's one way of thinking about it. If you are a team leader, then you can promote your team's achievements on social media, but then that also helps to promote your own achievements. So those are some of the things to think about. And building your brand on social media is equally very important. Again, you do have to do that within your company's guidelines. Lots of companies have quite strict comms protocols. They don't want people saying anything and everything about work on social media. So you do need to check what your company's comms policy is. Most companies are very happy for employees to share their own content. And particularly if it's a project that you've worked on, then you could say, oh, look, we've just launched this today. It's something that my team and I have been working on for ages. Really pleased to see it coming to fruition. But do check what your company's social media policy is before sharing work content on social media. And there is a balance on social media channels. Like, a lot of people have a slightly different persona on more personal channels like Facebook. But if you're talking about your personal brand and applying it consistently, you do have to think about how that is working across all the channels. Let's see, how much time do we need to spend each week doing this? Yeah, it's true. You do need to set aside some time. Some people would set aside like a Friday afternoon or something like that to go through, to think about, okay, what have I done this week? Which bits should I put on social media? Could I write up something to go on the internet or in the staff magazine, or that I can mention in next month's team meeting? Yeah, it's difficult to figure out if you're doing too much. Yes, I think just make sure you set aside some time, whatever you can spare, set aside time to do it, and make sure you guard that time in your diary. How are we doing for time? Can you recommend any training on social media for work? The CIPR is a good place. Chartered Institute of Public Relations is a good place to look for social media training, or the Public Relations and Communications Association. They are, so I'm actually a trainer for the CIPR as well, declaring an interest, not on social media actually, but they have good training, and the Public Relations and Communications Association. I'll put them in the chat in a minute. And these are, because we're drawing to the end of the session now, so these are the key things I wanted you to take away. So essentially, in terms of personal branding, be authentic. Make sure you're being genuine and true to yourself. Be an expert. Think about what it is you want to be an expert in, and then become recognized as an expert in that area. Grow your network. Share your story and champion your achievements. And we do have just a couple of minutes left if anyone has any more questions. I'm just putting the PRCA for social media training.